Family. People say it's where you find love, care, and safety. But for me, family became the place where my biggest betrayal was born. My name is Chloe, and this is the story of how my brother stole not just my money, but my future. Growing up, I was the good child, the one who stayed up late at night with books spread across the desk, the one who followed the rules, who said yes, Mom, yes, Dad, and never gave them trouble. I had a dream that kept me going. College. I wanted to be the first in my family to attend a good university. It wasn't about bragging rights. It wasn't about showing off. It was about building something better, something bigger than the small world we lived in. And my parents promised to support me. They even opened a savings account in my name. I can still remember being a little girl holding my mom's hand at the bank. The lady behind the counter handed me a passbook, and my mom smiled and said, "This money is for you, Chloe. One day, this will send you to college." That memory carried me through every hard night. Every time I felt like giving up, I thought about that promise. I thought about how one day I would use that money to step into a lecture hall, sit down with my books, and finally chase my dream. I wasn't spoiled. I didn't ask for fancy clothes or the newest phone. I wore the same shoes until the soles wore out. I saved my allowance instead of spending it, because to me the dream mattered more than anything else. But there was always him, my brother. He was older by a few years, but you wouldn't know it from the way he acted. Careless, reckless, always getting into trouble. He skipped school, lied to my parents, wasted money, wasted time. And yet, somehow, he was the favorite. Still remember nights when I was up until midnight solving math problems while he sat in the living room, laughing at video games. My mom would peek into my room and say softly, "Don't overwork yourself, Chloe." But when my brother failed, another class, she would stroke his hair and whisper, "It's okay, sweetie. You'll do better next time." It wasn't fair, but I stayed quiet, because deep down I thought if I just kept working hard, one day they would see. One day they would realize who was actually fighting for a future. But I was wrong. The day they finally noticed me was the day they destroyed everything. And before I take you deeper into this story, let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by your own family? If yes, you know the kind of pain I'm talking about. Stay with me, because what my brother did with my college fund will leave you shocked. For a while, everything seemed normal, or at least as normal as my family ever got. I woke up early, went to school, and came home to the same routine. Homework, chores, dinner, sleep, repeat. It wasn't exciting, but it was steady. And steady meant safe. My parents still reminded me about the savings account sometimes. "Chloe," my dad would say, "focus on your grades. Don't worry about money. We've got your college fund." Every time he said it, my chest filled with hope. I pictured myself walking across a college campus, holding books, meeting new people, starting fresh. That picture kept me alive on days when stress threatened to crush me. Meanwhile, my brother lived like every day was a holiday. He stayed out late, came home smelling like smoke, sometimes like alcohol. My mom scolded him, but not for long. She always softened. She always let him off the hook. It annoyed me, yes, but I told myself it wasn't my problem. I was different. I had my own path. He could waste his life if he wanted. I wouldn't. At school, teachers praised me. Friends whispered about how lucky I was to have such supportive parents. And I smiled, even though deep down I knew it wasn't luck. It was me working twice as hard to keep everything together. One evening, I remember sitting at the kitchen table, filling out a mock college application. My mom walked past and looked over my shoulder. "Look at you," she said softly, touching my hair. "Our Chloe. You're going to make us so proud one day." Her words warmed me. For once, I felt seen. But just minutes later, my brother barged in, tossing his backpack onto the floor. "Mom, guess what? My friend's cousin is selling his car. It's such a good deal. I'm thinking of getting it." Mom's attention snapped away from me in an instant. She turned to him, eyes wide. "A car, really?" He grinned, full of confidence. "Yeah. Imagine me driving around. I'll finally be independent." They laughed together. I sat there quietly, my application half filled, my heart sinking. Once again, I was invisible. Still, I convinced myself. It was fine. A car was just a car. It had nothing to do with me. At least that's what I thought back then. Looking back now, that evening was the warning sign. The little ripple before the storm. The moment when everything started to shift, though I didn't realize it yet. Because while I was dreaming about my future, my brother was already plotting how to steal it. The truth hit me on a quiet afternoon. I wasn't expecting anything unusual that day. I had just come home from school, tired but excited. College applications were opening soon, and I wanted to double-check everything: essays, documents, and especially money. The money was supposed to be waiting, safe and untouched, ready for my future. So I went with my mom to the bank. She had errands there anyway, and I thought, why not check my account? It'll be nice to see the numbers and remind myself that I'm almost there. We sat across from the teller. I gave her my details. She typed on her computer, nodded, and then printed something. She slid the paper across the counter. When I picked it up, my hands froze. The balance was almost empty. At first, I thought I misread it. I blinked. I looked. Again. No, it was real. All those years of saving. Gone. "Mom?" I whispered, my throat tightening. This can't be right. Can it?" She frowned, leaned in, and read the paper. Her face went pale. "There must be a mistake," she muttered, but her voice didn't sound sure. On the way home, I kept asking questions. "Do you know about this? Did Dad use it? Maybe they moved it somewhere?" My mom stayed quiet, her hands tight on the steering wheel. That night, at dinner, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I placed the paper on the table. My dad looked confused. My mom avoided my eyes. And then, my brother smirked. "Oh, that?" he said casually, as if I had asked about the weather. "Yeah, I borrowed it." I stared at him, my fork halfway to my mouth. "Borrowed it?" He shrugged. "Relax. I'll pay it back someday. Don't be so dramatic." My chest burned. My voice shook. "That was my college money. You can't just take it." He leaned back in his chair, grinning like he owned the world. "Well, I already did." That was when I learned the truth. The money wasn't gone to bills or emergencies. He had used it for a car. Not just any car, a shiny, new, expensive one. The same car he had been bragging about. The same car that now sat in our driveway like a trophy. I found out later through his social media. He had posted pictures. Him leaning on the car, him with his friends, him laughing at parties. All with my money. But the worst part wasn't even the theft. It was my parents' reaction. When I yelled, when I demanded answers, my mom told me to calm down. My dad said, "He's your brother, Chloe. Don't make this a bigger issue than it is. He'll return it someday." Someday. As if that made it okay. I ran to my room, my face wet with tears. I pressed my pillow over my mouth so no one would hear me cry. It wasn't just money that was gone. It was trust. It was fairness. It was my dream. And as I lay there shaking, one thought began to grow inside me. If no one else would fight for me, then I'd fight for myself. The days after the discovery felt like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I walked into the driveway, that car mocked me. Its shiny paint reflected the sun like it was proud of itself. My brother drove it around the neighborhood, blasting music, honking at friends, waving like a king. People cheered, thinking he was lucky, thinking he earned it. But I knew the truth. He had stolen my future and turned it into his toy. At home, things grew worse. I tried bringing up the money again, desperate for my parents to take my side. "Dad, this isn't fair," I said one night, my voice breaking. "That was for college. For me. You promised." But he cut me off. "Chloe, we can't undo what's already done. He's your brother. You need to let this go. Let it go." Those 3 words cut deeper than the theft itself. Mom wasn't any better. "You'll still go to college, sweetheart. We'll figure something out," she said. But her eyes slid away, guilty, avoiding mine. She didn't mean it. I could tell. Felt betrayed not just by my brother, but by the very people who were supposed to protect me. At school, I tried to hide it, but my friends noticed. "You okay, Chloe? You've been so quiet lately." I forced smiles. "Yeah, just stressed with homework." How could I explain that my own family had ripped my dreams apart? Who would even believe me? At night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing the sound of my brother's car pulling into the driveway at midnight. Sometimes he laughed with his friends outside, carefree, careless. Each laugh was a knife twisting in my chest. I tried writing in my journal, hoping it would calm me. The pages filled with anger, sadness, and questions. Why him? Why me? Why did they choose his fun over my future? The worst moment came when he knocked on my door one evening. He leaned against the frame, chewing gum, smug as ever. "You're still mad about the money?" he asked, as if it was a joke. I didn't answer. My silence was the only power I had left. He chuckled. "Don't worry, sis. You'll get over it. Besides, you should thank me. At least one of us is living life." The door slammed in his face before I even realized I'd moved. My hands shook, my body trembling with rage. That night, I whispered into the darkness, "This isn't over." It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about dignity. It was about justice. It was about proving that I wasn't weak, that I wouldn't let betrayal define me. In that moment, the anger inside me transformed. It wasn't just pain anymore. It was fuel. And though I didn't know it yet, that fuel would carry me toward a plan. One that would change everything for my brother, for my parents, and for me. At first, I didn't know what revenge would even look like. I mean, what could I really do? My brother had the money, he had the car, and he had my parents wrapped around his finger. I was just me, quiet Chloe, the good kid who followed rules and kept her head down. But the longer I sat in silence, the clearer one thing became. Silence wasn't helping me anymore. I began to watch, carefully, patiently. I paid attention to everything my brother did, every careless word, every arrogant move. He was sloppy. He bragged too much, partied too hard, and trusted his friends more than he should. That car, my stolen future on 4 wheels, became his pride and joy. He polished it every weekend, showed it off online, even left receipts, lying around that proved he was spending way beyond his limits, and that gave me an idea. If he had taken my future, maybe I could take away the thing he loved most. Not with violence, not with destruction, but with truth, with exposure. I started small. I accidentally overheard his phone calls. I peeked at his messages when he left his phone unlocked. Piece by piece, I collected information. Parties he skipped class for. The people he owed money to. The risky things he bragged about doing when our parents weren't listening, and I wrote it all down. Every detail. Late at night, while my family slept, I planned. My journal became less about pain and more about strategy. On one page, I listed his lies. On another, I wrote the names of teachers he disrespected, neighbors he annoyed, even the shady friends he hung out with. At school, I worked harder than ever. I wanted no cracks in my own image. If I was going to pull this off, I needed to be untouchable. No one could doubt me when the time came. The plan grew slowly, but it grew strong. I realized I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to beg my parents to see the truth. I could show them. I could make them face the person my brother really was. Still, doubt gnawed at me. Some nights I questioned myself. Was I becoming too much like him? Was revenge even worth it? But then I'd hear his laughter through the walls. Or see him toss his car keys on the counter like they were trophies. Or hear my parents defending him yet again. And the doubt would vanish, replaced by fire. This wasn't about becoming like him. This was about balance, about justice, about reclaiming what was stolen. By the end of that month, I had everything I needed: proof, strategy, and the determination to follow through. I wasn't the quiet little sister anymore. I was the storm he never saw coming, and soon, he would learn that betraying me was the biggest mistake of his life. The night of the confrontation didn't happen by accident. I chose it. It was a Friday evening. My brother had just come home from another one of his parties, bragging about how everyone loved his new car. His friends dropped him off, and I could hear their laughter fading as he swaggered into the house. I was waiting at the dining table, my journal closed in front of me. My parents were already there, half watching TV, half listening as he bragged about the weekend plans he had lined up. That was when I decided it was time. "We need to talk," I said, my voice sharper than usual. They all turned to look at me. My mom frowned, sensing the seriousness. My dad raised an eyebrow. My brother smirked. "Oh, here we go again. Chloe's about to lecture us." But this time, I wasn't lecturing. I was ready. I slid a folder onto the table. Inside were printed screenshots, receipts, and notes I had collected. Evidence, hard facts. "This," I said calmly, "is what you don't see when you defend him." I opened the folder and spread the papers across the table. Pictures of him. Skipping school. Messages where he bragged about lying to our parents. Receipts showing money he had spent recklessly. Not just the car, but nights out, expensive clothes, even lending money to people who mocked him behind his back. My parents froze. "Where did you get all this?" my mom whispered. "From him," I answered coldly. "Because he's careless. Because he thinks he can do whatever he wants and get away with it." My brother's smirk faded. His face flushed red. "You had no right to go through my stuff," he shouted. I met his eyes without blinking. "And you had no right to steal my future." The room went silent. For the first time, I wasn't the quiet sister. I wasn't begging. I wasn't invisible. I was in control. My dad tried to speak. "Chloe, maybe this isn't—" But I cut him off. My voice was steady, almost frighteningly calm. "Don't tell me to let this go again. Not this time. You asked me to stay quiet. You asked me to trust you. And look where that got me. I'm done being silent." My mom pressed her hand against her mouth, staring at the evidence. My brother shifted in his chair, fuming but cornered. For once, he couldn't charm his way out. He couldn't laugh it off. "You ruined my college fund for a car," I continued. "You threw away years of my hard work, and you expect me to just forget it? No. You don't get to decide that anymore." He tried to argue, but every time he opened his mouth, I countered with proof. Every lie, every excuse I had already prepared for. By the end of it, the house felt heavy with silence. My parents looked at my brother not with admiration, but with disappointment. And for the first time, he looked small, weak. I had taken back my voice, and I wasn't going to give it up again. The house felt different after that night. For the first time, my brother wasn't the center of attention. He tried to keep his usual swagger, but it was gone. The smirk, the bragging, the careless laughter. It all faded under the weight of what I had revealed. My parents didn't say much that evening after the confrontation, but the silence was telling. My dad avoided eye contact with me. My mom barely spoke at all. My brother stormed to his room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook, but I didn't feel small anymore. I felt powerful. The next morning, things were even stranger. Normally, my mom would rush to make my brother breakfast, while I quietly grabbed cereal. But this time, she barely acknowledged him. She asked me if I wanted eggs instead. It was such a small thing, but it was different. My brother noticed too. "Seriously? You're cooking for her now?" he snapped. Mom didn't answer. Dad left, for work without his usual cheerful goodbye to my brother. He muttered something about needing to think. And me? I just sat there, watching him squirm, realizing the balance of power had shifted. At school, things felt lighter. My friends still didn't know the details, but they noticed the change in me. "You seem stronger," one of them said. And she was right. For the first time in my life, I wasn't shrinking in the shadows of my family's favoritism. But my brother wasn't done. Not yet. He tried to fight back in small ways. He mocked me in front of relatives. He spread little lies about me to his friends. But none of it stuck. Not after the evidence I'd shown. Not after my parents saw the truth with their own eyes. The car, his precious prize, sat in the driveway, but it no longer shone the same way. Instead of admiration, it reminded everyone of what he had done. Every time my parents looked at it, I could see the disappointment in their eyes. A week later, my dad finally sat me down. His voice was low, heavy with guilt. "Chloe, I should have listened to you sooner. I let things go too far." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to believe that everything would be okay now. But another part of me remembered every time he had told me to let it go. So I just nodded. "I know, Dad. He promised they would try to help me with college again. Maybe not the same way. The savings were gone, but somehow he said they would make it right." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But deep down, I knew something had changed forever. Trust, once broken, doesn't just come back. Still, as I walked away from that conversation, I felt stronger than I ever had before. My brother thought he had destroyed me when he stole my money. But in the end, he had built me into someone who could stand tall, fight back, and win. And that was a victory no one could take away. Looking back now, I realize something important. The money, the savings account, the college fund, yes, losing it was devastating. But what hurt the most wasn't the number on a bank statement. It was the betrayal. The people I trusted most, the people who were supposed to protect me, had chosen silence and excuses instead of justice. And yet, that betrayal became my turning point. Before, I was invisible. I was the quiet daughter, the responsible sister, the one who didn't make trouble. My parents never worried about me because I was fine. They poured their attention into my brother, even when he didn't deserve it. But when he stole from me, when they let him, I learned something I'll never forget. Nobody will fight harder for me than I will. I carried that lesson everywhere. Into my studies, into my friendships, into my future. I worked harder than ever, not because I wanted to prove something to them anymore, but because I wanted to prove something to myself. My brother's car? It eventually broke down, of course. He couldn't afford the upkeep. His friends drifted, away when he stopped throwing parties. Slowly, he became just another guy with stories about the good old days that weren't really that good. My parents changed too. Maybe not completely, but enough. They stopped defending him blindly. They started looking at me with a new kind of respect, the kind I had earned, not begged for. And me? I moved forward. I applied for scholarships. I worked part-time. I scraped together what I could. It wasn't easy, but step by step I built my own path. That betrayal didn't destroy me. It sharpened me. It showed me how strong I could be when I refused to back down. And if there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. Even when the people closest to you let you down, even when they steal what you've worked so hard for, you are not powerless. You can rise above it. You can fight back. You can reclaim your future. Because sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't shouting or fighting or even payback. It's proving them wrong by becoming everything they said you couldn't be. So if you've ever been betrayed by your own family, know this: you're not alone. And your story doesn't have to end in pain. It can end in strength. If you found this story powerful, make sure to subscribe for more shocking tales of betrayal and revenge. Your support keeps these stories alive. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.